because I can barely see. I can I can see, but I can't really see words very well, if that makes sense. We're still going to make this work. Don't worry. I just wanted to caution you with that. So I will need some patience today. Um, Typically, what I share when it comes to moderating comments is that I do my best, but everything that's said does not get pulled through. And that's understandable because there's usually not enough time to pull every comment through for one thing. Like if there's 100 people and I take 100 comments, presentation's over. But aside from that, there's some other reasons why I don't not moderate comments. Um, it scrolls really fast, and a lot of people have complained that that is anxiety provoking. That's the last thing I want to do, especially with the mental health presentation. And the other situation is that sometimes there have been instances where people have felt bullied or trolled, myself included, by some of the comments. So obviously, I have to protect against that as well. But today is unique in the sense that, like I said, my eyes are a little sensitive this morning. So I'm not seeing in the way that I typically do. So I definitely want to make sure that you have some patience with me. Okay. All right. So now that we're all on the same page, there are, and I got to put my face really close to the screen to see it, the words. So I apologize. But we have about 32 of you here, and I appreciate that you are here. So thank you everybody for making it. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm trying to pull through your comments so that I can see. All right, so I'm excited. Thank you for your patience with me, and thank you for being here. It is the summer. There are many things you could do with your morning, but you are here to talk about toxic friendships, and I think that that shows a lot about your initiative when it comes to hopefully being a better friend. It does include making those strides, and those strides include doing the work. And the work is coming to something like this, learning, reading, growing, talking to your counselor, all those types of things. So, toxic friendships. When I think about toxic, I think about things that are bad for you, that are scary, that are dangerous, that might make you feel uncomfortable, or that could injure you, cause great injury. And I don't know when we started putting that word with things like friendship, right? But I do know that it's a good definition when you don't know if your friendship is one that's healthy or productive. Um, I know growing up, I definitely had friends that I didn't understand because sometimes they would be really nice to me and I felt very treasured, and sometimes they would be very mean to me and I felt like, hey, I got my own brand new bully that knows all my business. I think the tricky part about having a friend that's toxic or a bully is that they now know everything about you, so they have more ammunition to use. And that's really hard. And I know many of you have probably been in that situation, which is really challenging. So definitely empathize with you. Again, bear with me. Advance the slide. Oh, let me say really quick with the slide situation before I move that. I'm going to rub my eyes. I apologize. Um, with the slide situation, I don't share slides, but you can do a repeat of this actual presentation. So you'll get like a little thank you. And when you get the thank you, you can click on the request if you want to get it, get the actual presentation again, and they will get you the link to be able to do that. You usually have to do it within 7 days. So if you do want to see this again, or if you stepped in late, or if you got to leave early, that's a really nice thing to do. Or if you just want to repeat the content to make sure it's in your head. I do always suggest that people take notes. I find that notes are very helpful to make things stick. I know when I go to a presentation, I take notes, even if I don't keep them. Let me just say that because maybe you're trying to declutter. You don't have to keep them. Your brain is powerful. So just even taking the notes makes a huge difference. It gets into your head a little bit better. Also, you might be able to note little things to yourself. So sometimes what I'll do when I go to presentations, and I don't know if you ever do this, is I will grab stickies. So like I'll grab sticky notes and make little notes for myself, little like to-dos or task squares. So that's a fun way to take notes too. So it's like an actual to-do list all like ready for you. It's kind of a fun way to do things. I'm going to get really close to the screen to see some of your comments, and I apologize again for those of you who just jumped in. I did share with those who were here earlier. At that time, there was about 32 of you. Now, oh my gosh, there's 37. I'm having a hard time seeing this morning, like seeing as far as reading. Um, Everything's kind of blurry. I have really bad allergies, and when that happens, my eyes kind of cloud over, and it's harder for me to see. So I do apologize for that. So I'm going to get really close to the screen. It's not going to stop our party. We're still going to go through and power through. But I did want to make sure that you know. Okay. Oh my goodness, guys. I apologize, you all. Somebody said good morning, and they're from the Philippines. Well, hello, welcome from the Philippines. Glad to have you. I'm wondering if it's better with my glasses or without. I'm going to try without. Oh, you are welcome. Somebody said thank you. Good evening. Oh my goodness. Good evening. Sure doesn't feel like evening here. Works a different part of the brain, which locks in the information. Yes, exactly. That person speaking to the note taking, it works a different part of the brain, which really helps us quite a bit, the note taking. So, yes, we are on the same page. Okay, speaking of that page, we're going to change this one. So, if you are somebody who likes the screenshots, go ahead and take a picture now, that screenshot, if you want to. I'm okay if you do, but I'm going to change that slide very, very soon. So if you want to do that, now is the time while I sip a little coffee. Maybe that'll wake my eyes up and they'll change. I don't know. Usually when this happens, it happens every now and then. And it varies, it depends on the allergy season. And we here in Michigan, where I live, it is highly allergenic. I did take an allergy pill this morning, so hopefully that helps a little bit, but sometimes it takes a while to kick in. All right, I'm changing the slide, you all. That was my little small talk in between slide changing. Okay, so who am I? Who I am. A lot of you have been here before, so you're used to me, but I'll tell you some things that maybe I didn't mention last time, or for those of you who are new, you get a update that you didn't have before. So I am a therapist on this site. I am a what we call licensed professional counselor, and I'm also a national certified counselor. So that's LPC and NCC. When you see those initials, that's what that stands for. So that's my credentials professionally. That means I had to go through a lot of schooling, but I also had to take some tests, kind of like the NCC is like the bar for counselors. I also had to take a lot of hours in clinical work and non-clinical work. So just really immersing myself in the craft of counseling in order to get those initials behind my name. In order to keep those things up, I have responsibilities to get continuing education on a regular basis, to be immersed in the field, to make sure that I'm reading, growing, learning. So when you get a therapist, they never stop. So sometimes the work is continual, but that's good for you and good for the therapist. It helps us to stay alert and not get dull, which is really important in the profession. But it also makes sure that we're acting from a place of current um, knowledge as opposed to outdated knowledge. Because I got to tell you, it's like when you went to school, you might have had a book where it was fourth edition, and all of a sudden they said, "Well, now we want the fifth edition." It's like that. So the edition of counselor that you get is constantly updating, which is a good thing. We want to do that. So that's a little bit about me being a therapist. I do have a private practice in my area, and I also have a caseload on this site, which I love. One note, this isn't therapy this morning, it's more so a presentation. So I'm acting today with the therapy knowledge, but since I don't know you, I'm more so your instructor today. So look at it from that lens, not how you would look at it with your individual therapist. If you did grab a notepad, I would ask you at this point to take a note though that you should talk to your therapist about what you learned today. Will you learn everything about bullying and toxic friendships? No. You'll learn a lot, though, I'm hoping. And even if you take one good thing away, one good nugget, that's huge. But make a note to talk to your therapist about this because I think that's a really great thing to bring in the session. Partly because I do have limited knowledge about you, but they don't. So you could relate it to actual situations in that case, and I think that'll be really helpful. So if you want to do that, I think that would be really good. All right. I also am an author. I have 6 books that range from early reader to young adults. And they are on that topic of bullying and self esteem. And I'm a speaker here, but I also speak. I've done some TED Talks. I have two of them floating around out there, two TEDx talks. I've spoken for organizations across the world, like Princeton University. I've spoken for um, lots of different groups out there, lots of library groups, Library of Michigan. Um, and I still continue to do a lot of speaking on different topics and training because it's needed. We need that knowledge. I'm a mental health contributor for Prevention Magazine, as well as Essence has featured me and Detroit Free Press. That's a lot of credential stuff. One last thing I'll note is that I do a regular podcast called Mental Health Moments with Tara. So Spotify and Apple, you'll start seeing a big cluster of them come up. I usually do them in batches. So there's lulls and then there's more. So you'll see some more of that come up hopefully this week. I am a friend though. So off of the professional, on to the personal. Let me tell you, I don't need a degree to be a friend. I don't need a credential to be a friend. I don't have to have clinical or non clinical hours to be a friend. So, therefore, you and I are very similar in that aspect. There are some things that make you a better friend than not. There's some things that make you a worse friend than not. And that's what this presentation covers. When we look at mental health and you think about the tie in, I want to make sure you understand that who's around you makes a big difference in how you feel about yourself and how you feel mentally and emotionally. That social interaction is a huge contributor. So I want to remind you of that. And that's why this presentation is important today. And that's why I'm here, because I want to make sure that you all are having healthy friendships, especially as we go through these things with the pandemic and so many changes in our lives that really activate a lot of stress. So I said a lot about me, but if you need to snap that slide, go ahead and do it. And I'm going to see if I can get a little closer to the screen and read some of the comments. Oh, you're watching from California. Well, thank you for watching from California. All right, I'm going to switch that slide. Oh, Singapore. Hey, Singapore and Tennessee. There's a song about Tennessee. All right, I'm going to switch that. All right, so I always like to know what brings you here. I don't necessarily want you to tell me today. I want you to write it down for yourself. And here is why. You can tell me, and that's great. But I think reminding yourself while you're here is good when you get discouraged and you feel like, what am I doing with my life? Write that note down. Write down for yourself what brought you to this particular presentation today. Like, who brought you to this particular presentation today? So, I guess asking that question, is there somebody that you feel like you could be a better friend to? Is there somebody that you feel like is just breaking you down every time you're around them? You feel worse. Um, our words have so much value. And I, as a therapist, I've noticed that I'm not sure if I'm hyper sensitive now that I am a clinician, or that it always it bothered me, but now I understand more where things are coming from. When people say things that are cruel or hurtful or vindictive, it hits hard, but I catch every slight. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I catch every slight. So if somebody's intending to be sneaky and throw in a rude thing or not, I catch it. And that hits us. When people say things to us, they either build us up or break us down. So like the breakdown comments are really hard to take in, and I catch them. When you catch them, this is what I suggest you do before you do anything. You ready? This is real. This is tip number one. If you're writing down solutions, this is tip number one. This is what I want you to do first. Inhale. So we're gonna do that together today. We're gonna go through our nose, and then we're gonna exhale through our mouth. Okay. So you ready? Inhale. Hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale. Don't forget that part. Exhale. So we're gonna do it again. We're gonna inhale. Exhale. Let it out. One more time. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. You don't really have to count that one. We're just bringing it through. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. But I say take those breaths first. Why? Why do I say do that? I think when someone says something hurtful, there's a lot of things that can happen, a lot of things that do happen. But if you're able to take some time for yourself and just give yourself a little stress reduction, that's always good. In addition to that stress reduction, if you're able to give yourself a treat of breath, which we all get freely, I told you I have bad allergies. They're terrible, especially during this time. Sometimes they're year round terrible. But because I have issues with allergies, I know how precious breath is. So being able to get some clean air in that makes me feel good is a huge deal. Um, Even if you don't have allergies, it's similar, but it gives you a little bit of a break before you have to respond if you choose to respond. And it's doing something special for you that you can do in that moment. You don't have to go grab a spa or even a drink of water if you can't get to it, but that breath is free. So that's really helpful. Someone says, I'm just like you. Catch every slight. Yes. Yes. Good morning from New York City. Hello there. You have a good laugh. Thank you. It varies. Sometimes my laugh is what you've heard, and sometimes there's a snort, but the allergies can like mess up the snort, which is probably good for you all this morning. Somebody says, with flights, my mind goes back, then angry at myself for not saying anything. Oh, we've all been there. Oh, I should have said this. Do you ever have something, have a situation where someone says something and you're like, deer in headlights, and you're like, oh no, I don't know what to say to that. And then you get home later and you're like stirring some soup and you're like, that would have been great to say. We've all been there. Rest assured, write down whatever you thought you should have said when it comes to you later. And then think about, if I would have said this, what the outcome could have been versus what happened. Sometimes that first response is the best response, believe it or not. But that breath will help because what that'll do is help clear your mind a little bit so that you don't say the wrong thing. And you could be the best guesser of what the wrong thing is. But if you've ever said something that you like, that is not how I wanted to respond, there you go. I was talking to a very close person in my life yesterday, and they were on the phone and they said something they didn't mean to say. And after they got the phone call, they're like, oh, I really messed up. I didn't mean to say that. And we had a conversation about it and they were really stressed. And I'm like, you got to be intentional. It's okay to take notes, even on the phone call. Notes are so powerful, breaths are so powerful. I think sometimes we feel like we have to have the right answer or we can't make mistakes in that moment or not sound perfect in that moment. But I think that if you don't know what to say, you can say, I'm not sure what to say to that. Let me think about it. And that's okay. Give yourself that permission. Let me take a breath and then take your breaths. Okay. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Um, Things are getting a little bit better on this end with sight without my glasses on. Just FYI, but it's not perfect. So still keep that patience running for me. But I just wanted to let you know that as things get better, I'll let you know. So I'm gonna keep the glasses off for now. There are now 47 of you here. If you just entered, hello there, welcome. I did caution everybody that my sight is not perfect this morning as allergies like to attack my eyeballs. So if you're writing in, we are moderated. We're always moderated, but I just be patient with me responding to you. Okay. All right. So a friend is someone who gives you total freedom to be yourself. There's been a lot of talk about freedom lately, right? Like people are like, what is freedom? Break that down. How free is free? And does your freedom have consequences attached to it? If you do something that's illegal, you're free to do it, but you might not stay free for long if it's illegal, right? So there's always that cautionary point when it comes to freedom. But when it comes to friendship, you're not necessarily worried about getting arrested, I'm hoping. But more so like if you'll get an arrested reaction, like if somebody will police your speech or police your actions because they don't like them or because they want you to be more like them. Um, Total freedom to be yourself in a friendship means that you can make mistakes. You can be quirky if that's who you are. I'm quirky. Like I said, I snort when I laugh. I actually had a friend who told me he hated that after a while, and he like had a little outburst about it. So he had been thinking about it for a while. I was in college and he's like, I hate that snort. Your laugh is terrible. And he kind of had like a little mini episode there. And I was taken aback. Remember, I wasn't a therapist at the time. I was just a college student in my dorm laughing with what I felt like was my friend. I wasn't self conscious about my interactions with him in that way, but it definitely made me self conscious every time I snorted and laughed around him, which is tough because my laugh brings me joy. It makes me feel better if I can do that. Yeah. So it was really tough that he had that response. But I noticed more as our friendship went on that there were some areas in his life that I think he wasn't happy with himself. And as a result, he sometimes put that on other people. I discovered a lot of this once I was a therapist. And once I became a therapist, we didn't stay friends as long as we probably would have because I started noticing some very toxic traits. I apologize again about my eyes, guys. Or you all. I'm trying not to say guys, but they are getting cloudy again. So those are just some thoughts that I'll throw out to you. Use some hand sanitizer since my hands are in my face. But think about your own friendships. Think about what you have freedom to do or what you'd like freedom to do. You know, like, do you feel like you can tell your friends your mistakes without getting pummeled? Do you feel like your friends will turn against you if they know the bad stuff about you, whatever that bad stuff might be? Um, are there times that your friends have used confidentiality against you, things that you've felt like safe to tell them about, and they've actually made you feel bad or embarrassed you or broke confidence? These are things to watch out for, but also to keep in mind. You can learn a lot. Somebody said yes to all. Oh my goodness. Isn't that tough? Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. It's the covert stuff that makes it the hardest. I agree. It happens way too often. Yeah, it does. It does. And make a note of this. Like, if you're writing to me, make me a promise that you'll write a note for yourself, okay? Because I don't want you to go away from today and be like, man, I'm so glad that we had that opportunity to get that stuff out with Tara. That's awesome. But I want you to have it for yourself because I won't always be with you, right? Just like once a week or so, maybe twice in the week. But still, I want you to have that time for yourself to really dig in. Because what I'd like this to be is a time for you to really brainstorm and think through intentionally who is in your circle and are they impacting your mental health in a negative way? Are you impacting their mental health in a negative way? Is it considered toxic? If it is, now what? I get a lot of what if, Tara? That has not happened today, and I love you for it. Because usually when I get those, I say, no what ifs, only now what's, then what's. Let's say that they did that what if. So if you want to even, consider like, man, how do I proceed here? Because they could do a lot of things. It's okay to think of scenarios, but also think of if they did do those things, what are you going to do in result? Because it is up to you. And it is nice to kind of think through what your responses would and should be. But you might need some time for that, and that's okay. Give yourself that space. If you haven't taken a picture of this slide, now is the time to do that because I'm going to change it really soon. My best friend betrayed me and told others my deep secrets. Okay, that's pretty intense. Feels like movies and TV perpetuate toxic friends dynamic. Hello, 902 and no one on. You know what? You're right. Sometimes I wonder if TV and media are imitating life or if life is imitating TV and media. And I don't know. I don't know which one is true. It might be a little bit of both, right? I know as a kid, um, confession. I like retro TV shows like a lot, like too much. And specifically, shows that are really hard to find now. So I really like The Facts of Life. I know it's dated, it's old, but I used to watch those reruns and I love it. They only have season 3 available. So sad. But anyway, um, when I watched that show on syndication, sometimes I would do things like Tootie because I thought she was awesome. But you know what? That show is super dated and it was out before I was born. So like the thing is, or I think it came out in like the 70s or something. But some of those behaviors, like if you imitate, they might be outdated. They might be a little different. Some of the slang that they use or the words that they use is not what we use now. So sometimes when you do imitate media or art, you're not always in par with our current way of living. And similarly, that I might say something like, I don't know, like a character from like the 70s or 80s would say, which is not necessarily appropriate in 2021. It's similar to if you have a behavior that you, like somebody mentioned 90210, that you see that's toxic from like Brenda or Brandon. Brandon was never toxic, right? It was mostly Brenda. But you know what I'm saying if you know that show. So we want to be careful with that because we're built to imitate sometimes, but we have to be careful with that. And that goes to surroundings as well. Your media counts. If you're taking in harmful stuff that you don't know how to moderate into that's just fiction and you bring it into your relationships, that can be pretty damaging. So watch that reality TV, watch that Real Housewives stuff. It's fun to watch, but you bring that energy in. I know for me, some years ago, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I binged one of the Real Housewives shows, and I was just enamored in it. And it was like it was almost like watching a train wreck a little bit, but I loved watching it. And then I noticed my attitude was bad after it, and I'm like, "Ooh, I can't binge that again." Like maybe an episode or two every year, or or if you must watch and you must binge, grab your journal and bring it with you and learn more about yourself. Ooh, right? While you're watching that show, write down the thoughts that you have, write down the energy that you're taking in, and use that. Somebody says, "Yes, facts of life, love it." Aw, don't make me sing the song. I'm terrible. I'm not a good singer, but I'll do it. So let's hold me back and hope I get my eyesight back, right? Grew up in the 80s and I see how TV has become more toxic indeed. Yeah. There was always, that's a good point. There was always like a moral to the show, and now there's no moral. It's just like, yep, that's we did this. This is bad. Next. Brandon had major Devo attitude. Ha! Watched the reruns on Pluto lately. Oh my goodness. I watched the reruns of 90210 recently too. When I say recent, maybe it was before the pandemic actually, so maybe not so recent. Facts Life is all about you. Oh my goodness, you're singing it. Somebody said do it. Okay, well you asked me to, and like I feel like I owe it to you since I don't have full eyesight right now. So all right. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life. Okay, that's all you're getting from me. Somebody says, "What are expectations of a friend?" Toxic. Oh, I'm gonna get to that. Don't worry, we're gonna get to it. I promise. No cable for a reason. Yes, great job. Thank you. Sounds good. Thanks. Woohoo! Love the singing. You all are the best ever. I never do presentations in the morning, but now you're making me rethink my life. Thank you. Look at you. So all this positive energy, bring that to your friendships. It will make a world of difference. Thank you for being so encouraging this morning. So speaking of friendship, what is it? What is friends? I like the facts of life because there's four people, right? You got Joe, and if you don't know the show, it's okay. But for those of you who do, and some of you do, you've got Joe, you've got Blair, you have Natalie, you have Tootie. Those are the four core people. I mean, if you go really backwards, you see the ones from like 1,000 years ago where there's like a whole bunch of people in the house. And Miss Garrett, the anchor person, love her. Apparently, Charlotte Ray was very much like Miss Garrett, which I love. But she was her own person, but her personality shined through. Her eyes always smiled. That helps in a friendship, doesn't it? When people give you positive regard. If you're thinking about a friendship like Miss Garrett, she was the older person, so someone that could be a mentor to you, but very welcoming, very warm, very kind. Somebody who you knew you could go to with your problems, but who you can just get nurtured by. And almost the interaction of sitting next to them feels like a snuggle or a cuddle, right? Oh, thank you so much. I love your energy too. So that is awesome, right? Somebody like Tootie is just, again, I thought I was her. I wanted to be Tootie, okay? Kim Fields is still killing it. She's doing great work, but that Tootie, that retro Tootie, like that's life. Just fun, innocent, energetic, kind, quirky. Natalie, hilarious, had a great sense of humor. Sometimes we are gravitated to people who make us laugh. I found that some friendships are very opposite of each other. So sometimes a friend that isn't very like humorous might find somebody who's very humorous because they need to smile more or laugh more. There's nothing wrong with finding people who fit what you need. Do you know what I'm saying? Somebody like Joe is more straightforward, telling it like it is, saying things that, maybe everybody won't say, but you need to hear. And somebody like Blair has a lot of layers to her. But if you paid attention, she had a good heart. She might go her own way and then realize after backing up that her way might have hurt people. And then she goes back and apologizes. Or she might see people assuming things about her because of her wealth or her privilege, and then she realizes she needs to check that, and then she'll come back and make sure they understand who she is. So I think giving those examples, you always want to think about, how am I showing up in my friendships? Am I showing up as somebody who's warm or who's open? Am I tell it like it is, if my friends can take it or not? That's a hard thing to do. It's very hard to be tell it like it is, but it's not a bad thing as long as you're not being cruel with it. Don't be that brutal, honest person that's just cruel for cruelty's sake. But it's good to be honest with our friends as well. So there's lots of reasons why we seek out this thing called friendship, but this is what it is. It's somebody who you have some kind of mutual attachment to, right? So those are some of the words that are synonymous. A union, there's an affirmational pull there, right? So think of those things. Opposites attract, someone says. What are good real life ways to reconnect with friends if you haven't seen most people in a super long time? That is a really good question. I think meeting up with them one on one as opposed to in a group is a good idea, to answer your question, because I think that if you haven't seen them in a long time, you might want to reestablish what you have or had. And if you bring other people into that, it gets a little muddy sometimes, because then you have to deal with their personalities, which could vary. I hope that's helpful. Take a picture of the slide if you need to. Friendships also have their own love languages, I think. They do. But you have your own love language. So know what yours is. Go online, not right now, but after we're done, and find the love languages assessment and take it. It's free. There's also a book called Love Languages, the 5 love languages, that you can check out from your local library, or you can buy whatever works best for you. But the test is free online. And that'll help you to see what your 5 love languages are. So that's a little homework for you. Thanks for bringing it up. Somebody says recovery from a pattern of narcissistic friendship. So I'm really careful when I use words like narcissistic, bipolar, even depression, because they're overused, and they're overused usually by people who are not clinically professionals. And I think what it does is not good. It stigmatizes people who actually have disorders like depression, etc. So I try in my speech, and I ask here, that we just use what the problematic behavior is. So if someone's mean, they're mean. Mean is not a disorder. We all can be mean. You see what I'm saying? But if I attach a disorder to their behavior, I'm doing a couple things. I'm um, assuming that having that disorder makes you a certain way. In some cases, it might be a risk factor, but you got to be really careful. So I shy away from using mental health language with some of these things, because in order to be a toxic friend, you don't have to have a diagnosis. You could just be a toxic friend. Do you see what I'm saying? Somebody says things that started to do more and then it went away. Sorry. Never had a Mrs. Garrett. Thought it was normal to be nitpicked and criticized by my elders. I know. Isn't that sad? You need more Miss Garrett's. Take a picture of the slide if you have, and I'm changing it soon, y'all. And I haven't seen my so-called best friend in 2 years. Are they still a friend? No response in emails either. Not sure what happened. This friend can mean yes. Yeah. So in terms of like, again, words like bipolar, narcissism, depression, try to limit those words in describing your friendships, and like look at what the problematic behaviors are. I think it'll help. And it'll break down what the real issues are too, instead of like slapping it with something that it doesn't really apply, if that makes sense. Yes, thank you for your advice. Different and good perspective. Thank you. I know I've gotten down confidentiality and not connected with people I love in the pandemic. Right. That is hard. It's definitely a time where we've all felt more blue than not. It's been tough. A lot of isolation. Um, a lot of I'm sorry. A lot of isolation, a lot of distance, and also figuring out new ways of living. All of us are going through a huge transition and adjustment, even today. The pandemic is not over, as we know, and it's revved back up for many of us. So some of you have already had to switch up your lifestyles based on that. So when we're talking about friends, maybe you're better friends in person than you are not in person, and you recognize that, and now you're trying to figure out what to do. I would say a good rule of thumb for our current time is to kind of jot down what you find beneficial about your friendship when you're not around each other, because we're going to face a lot of that as we continue on with what we're dealing with as a world, this pandemic. But also, what are the perks when you are around each other? Try to navigate those things if you can. A little homework. So what are friends for? Sharing in activities. I like to play tennis with my friends and golf with my friends. These are recent things because I don't go to my gym anymore because of the way things are. I really miss going to my gym, but I don't go. So I'm playing tennis and I'm golfing and doing other things that are physical. Volleyball. Who'd have thunk it? So I'm doing things like that. So I'm looking for activities to share with friends. Going to the park more. That's a fun thing. I didn't do that a lot before. Um, Companionship, you know, your friend is your companion, someone that you can really get close to. A lot of us enjoy similar things. I've got friends when we talk about makeup, where we talk about hair. Hair is a big one for me. But what's a big one for you? Make sure you jot that down. Like what similar things do you have that you talk to your friends about, and what do you want to make similar that you talk to your friends about? Like, are there friendships that you feel like you want to seek out where maybe you all color? You see what I'm saying? Or box or knit. I tried knitting this pandemic. Next time, not today, because I've got a presentation right after this, so I don't have time today. But I'm going to show you all how we don't have to all be good in everything. I did some needlepoint and it is terrible, but it's kind of hilarious because it just shows it's okay to not be okay. We want our friends to be able to listen to us and to care about us and to feel like someone cares for you, right? We want to care for them too. Somebody says they feel like the pandemic changed a lot of friendship dynamics due to distance. I agree with you. And here's the thing. So due to distance, but don't you think there's other things too? Like maybe if you do talk to your friend more on the phone, you learn more about them than if you always were doing activities together, because you learn more about their heart, potentially. So it's even deeper than just like, oh, now I don't get to see you as much. Maybe when you saw each other, you just went to movies and you didn't talk much, right? You see what I'm saying? Yes, hair. Um, I have a close person in my life that mentioned a friend showcasing some behaviors since the pandemic that probably wouldn't have even been available before. Um, so being grateful that they're seeing that side of them, but also that wasn't a thing before. So also like we might have different dynamics that stand out. Like I said, the gym was somewhere where I loved, and I had a lot of friends at the gym. It was like my little network. That's gone now. I don't talk to many of those people. Some of them I do, but I had like a network that I'd see in the cafe and like on certain floors and things of that nature at the my health club, and I don't see them as much anymore because maybe we don't have that in common, and that's okay. Somebody says, "Is it okay if you're learning a new hobby to try and bring that into your friendship work as well?" Yeah, absolutely. I think doing something together is really building a good friendship. I really do. So yes, absolutely. I actually have enjoyed spending my time alone. My friends have been pretty offended by that. But you need your space, right? I'm thinking like especially if you didn't spend time alone, you're probably now learning a lot about yourself. So even breaking that down for them, just a suggestion might help, like letting them know, hey, this doesn't mean I love you any less. I just never had the time to do this before and I'm enjoying it. I think being comfortable in your own skin and by yourself is great Please take a picture of this slide. I'm changing it really soon. So I'm going to take a smoothie break while you do that. There are 51 of you here. Welcome if you just joined. And if you did just join, I mentioned to everyone that I'm having some vision issues, so please be patient with me. Impressed in a way, haha, I can have trouble with it. Yeah. Oh yeah, competition and jealousy can be big factors. So watch that for yourself and watch that for others. And here's what I'll say to that for others. Um if you start seeing a lot of notes on that, try not to assume that that's what's going on. Maybe have a conversation about it and see how people are feeling. And if you have jealous thoughts or competitive thoughts, you might be able to voice those too about yourself as well. But um, having a talk can be really, really beneficial. It can like stave off a whole bunch of stuff that's not necessary. Okay. All right, so we're gonna switch the slide. Whew, hand sanitize real quick. What are signs that your friendship is toxic? Your friend does not celebrate your good news. You just got a promotion. You tell your friend, they're like, okay, that's not what you want to hear when you get a promotion. Subtle cut downs. Huh. Even you got that? That's a big deal. You see what I'm saying? Rude, but subtle. I would catch that slight. Many of you would catch that slight. Obvious insults. You look terrible today. That's obvious. That's not nice. Sabotage. Hey, I know you don't like to be around this person, but I invited them anyway, okay? Why you do that if you know? Sabotaging behavior. So those are some signs that your friendship is toxic. If you noted all four of those types of things happen, and I gave examples with them for your convenience, then you might want to rethink how you land in your friendship. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you to break off a friendship. That's your job if you decide to do that and go that route. But those are some really good examples that you can think through. Okay, so take a second to do that, and I'll say them again. Your friend does not celebrate your good news. Subtle cut downs, obvious insults, and sabotage. Different paths in life can affect friendship a lot, I think. I agree. I agree. Also, there can be disruption when somebody moves. I had a great friend, and we were younger though. We were younger. We were unmarried. We were not moms yet. We were new in our careers, and then she moved and had a whole different life experience. And she came back, and I think that we no longer felt exactly the same that we did before about each other. Um, as a result, it made us shift. And at one point, things did get a little toxic because of that, because she came back um, as a different person. And I think sometimes differences are not always bad, and shifting friendships are not always bad if you can flow with it. We are supposed to grow and evolve, so there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, and this is where you might want to set boundaries, it's understanding where your deal breakers are. So if your boundary to me crosses my boundary, then it might not be a good fit. Um, Somebody says, "Yep, all four." Have friends look down on me for not getting married and having kids. Okay, and that's unfortunate. That's your life. That's where you're at right now, right? I kept being told I was too sensitive and crazy when I said my friend made me feel like that, and then I was isolated without another friend. And what is too sensitive? I always am just shocked by that. Like, you can't be too sensitive. I mean, in the sense of like, if you're telling somebody that you're hurt by something and their response is you're too sensitive, that's not gonna help you or them. Um, it's just interesting. It's like, I'm feeling this way. Well, let me judge your feeling. Hmm. When your friend is not there when you're going through a tragedy, is this toxic? It depends on the situation. I can't blanketly answer that, but you know your situation. So dig into that deeper with your therapist, because if your friend just decides that they don't want to be there for you, that's one thing, but maybe they're going through their own thing, or maybe it's triggering for them. if that makes sense. Like if someone lost a parent and then their friend lost a parent, maybe they just can't deal with that situation because it's too painful mentally for them. So sometimes that's where conversations are helpful. Friendships always get lost when you change jobs. They can, 100% they can. So I've kept some of them, but a lot of them have gone by the wayside. But some of them were appropriate to the job and not now. So you do have seasons, right, where it fits and where it doesn't. Take a picture of this slide if you haven't, because I'm changing it soon. Okay, what do you do if you see the signs? Confront. That sounds scary to some of you. Listen, I'm not saying be mean about it. Do your inhale, exhale, and confront though, if you can. And when I say confront, here's an example. Hey Tara, I wanted to talk to you because I feel like we've really drifted apart and I love our friendship, but I especially love the positive parts of it. And when we get together, I just feel like sometimes it's nitpicky or not as nice. So I don't know how you feel about how things are going. Can we talk about it? I think that's really beneficial, for example. You're approaching lightly, you're giving the benefit of the doubt, you're asking questions. How do you feel? Um, Check in because they might not know how to tell you they feel bad about you. Open that door if you can. Be ready for it though. You might get an earful of what you weren't expecting about yourself. Not in a negative way, but if they've also been like kind of holding back because they don't want to say the wrong thing, they might end up saying some things you didn't consider about yourself. And that might need some thought too. Remember, I said you don't always have to have the right answers in the moment. So you can say, this is a lot to think about. This was helpful. Let me take some time to chew on this and let's get back and talk again in about a week or two. You don't have to have it all figured out at that point. But find out if there's an underlying situation or something that needs resolving so that you can work through it or not. Depends on the situation, right? Friends can definitely drain you 100%. So you have to figure out what's best for you when you are drained. I don't know you personally. So, if you're drained and that makes you angry or unproductive or just tired, you got to figure out how much you see them. Maybe you limit your contact. I've definitely limited contact with certain people. I also don't answer my phone anymore if I don't want to. Like I'll let things go to voicemail quite often, especially with everything going on in the world and my job. I don't always allow people to have my voice. Somebody random found me on Facebook yesterday. I can't be friends with clients, so I'm always very cautious when I get requests. And this person said, "Oh, I thought we could be friends. I saw that you're friends with mutual friends, and that was all nice and well and good. But no, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. In my profession, I should not do that. I take in a lot of energy. I have to think a lot about who my friends are because I use a lot of emotional energy at work. So I really want to make sure that I have boundaries and deal breakers in place with my friends. And you might want to think about what your guidelines are too, or even create a friend mission statement for yourself, right? I need to learn how to approach in that way I get crazy and fly off the handle. Many of us can. You're not alone. Take a picture of this slide if you need to. But that is why taking your time and thinking through what you want is good. And I hope this morning it helps with that. Um, an example of that is when we go for a walk. I like to look around. I enjoy the skies, the pond, the lizards, doggies, and of course people. But she will zoom in when there is someone who is the same sex as my partner. Yeah, I don't. So it sounds like you have different reasons why you take your walk. Is what I'm thinking you're saying. It's okay if there's varied interest. I think if it's affecting you in a negative way, that's when you really want to take a look at things. If it's toxic, ask yourself if it's consistent, right? If it happens once, that's one thing. If it happens all the time, that's really a little doorbell for you. And like I said, talking is good. But ask yourself, what are your deal breakers? What boundaries you need to have? Remember, I mentioned creating your own mission statement, making your own list. So you got to do some work here, but it'll help you. I think it'll really help you. So take a look at that slide because it's going to go away soon. Um, the ear, the earful though got an explosion of things I didn't know about the friendship. Yes, yes. Oh, you said the earful though. I got how you said that. The earful though. Yes. Sometimes we can get things that we didn't expect. So when you're confronting and you're having that talk, just be prepared to find out more about you that maybe you didn't recognize as well. And that's okay. It's okay to learn about yourself. If someone's being damaging and destructive, that's a whole different story. But if they're just sharing, Ashley, I've been feeling really bad because when we were here, this happened and you initiated that, and that was unhealthy for me, you know. So keep that in mind. Be prepared to learn about yourself. Take a picture of that slide. Can a potential significant other also apply as a friend? To me, yes. I think my personal thing again, you got to create your own boundaries and standards and mission statements, right? But for me, I didn't want to be involved romantically with anyone that I wasn't friends with because to me, friends is more important than that. So I wanted my person, my significant other, to be a friend first. But that might just be my thing and not yours, and that's okay too. There are times, speaking of which, though, that being said, there are times when you need to break up with a friend. So you set the rules of when you break up. You set your own policies, okay? I'm on a lot of boards, and we have policy committees and lots of these boards where we come up with what are the rules of understanding and what are the ways that we do things and what are the consequences if they're not followed. So you have your own policy, your own friendship policy. We have insurance policies and uh, government policies. Have your own policies in your friendship and figure that part out. Every friendship is different. Every breakup is different. What does that look like for you when you have to cut ties with somebody? I cling on to certain stressful, draining old friendships because I'm not good at making new friends and I don't know how to find better. What do I do? I don't know what you do because I don't know you personally. But I'm glad that you do know what your problem is, that you deal with things that maybe you shouldn't, right? And they're not going to get better if you don't assert that they get better. So I guess what I'd ask you to do for yourself that might be beneficial is talk to your therapist about what do you do when you're met with toxic behaviors in friendship, but you're holding on because maybe you feel like having someone is better than not having someone. Is that the case? You know, if we don't have standards, then people have nothing to follow. So you got to think about that. You have to also figure out like, do you need to move on? Like maybe you were friends when you were kids and you're still going by those rules. Maybe you need to upgrade together. Maybe that friendship has settled its course. I've got a really good friend that I had when I was like 4, 4 or 5, and we played together and all this good stuff. And of course, there was a big span of break there. She found me on Facebook. We found each other on Facebook, and we're Facebook friends. But I don't think it'll ever really go beyond that. I don't think we'll ever get back to like the friends that we were when we were kids, and that's okay. I'll accept that. So also like understanding what's your square? Like what's your if you were to put your friend in a category, like are they somebody that you just like to talk to online or that you Zoom with once a year or or that you visit when they come to town? Or are they somebody that you see on a regular basis? It's okay to have a standard in that way. Okay. Or to say goodbye. Remember the breakups do happen, so that's okay too. Somebody says that people sometimes compare friendships to bank balances, like withdrawals and deposits. I like that. That makes sense. What are you depositing? What are you withdrawing? I like that. Ask yourself that at the end of the day, right? Ooh, who did I withdraw from? Who did I deposit to? I like that. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. The best way to have a good friend is to be one. So check in with yourself and use that deposit withdrawal thing. I like that so much. If I'm codependent and my friends always bring problems to me and use my energy, how do I handle that? Because I do not want to be the fixer of everything. It sounds like you need to work on your codependence. That's the root that you just shared. You started with that. And if you don't work on you, then it's going to be hard to change with your friendship. So work on that codependence. Talk to your therapist about it. There's a lot of ways you can work on it. You're not lost. There's a couple really good TED Talks about codependence too. If you want to look into those, I would suggest. Okay. Remember, you have a therapist that you should look at for a resource. Super helpful. Your journal, books out there, and your gut. So all use all of those aspects. Odd Girl Out is a really good book when it comes to relational aggression and friendships. I would strongly suggest. I also have my own book that's fiction, young adults. It's called No Longer Besties and Other Assorted Teenage Drama that showcases a friendship that goes bad. So look into that as well. Those are some options I can give you for a little book list today. All right, but trust your gut. We only have a couple minutes for comments, and I've taken them throughout, so I think we've done good there actually. But I only have a couple minutes because I'm about to start another presentation very shortly. So you'll see me open up another one really quick. Um, some therapists are too Pollyanna-ish. I think I'm a toxic friend, and that's a realization that has been hard. Yeah, you'll have lots of realizations as you go. And work through that, sit in the mud with it, and then figure out what you want to do with it. Somebody says, "Can you repeat the bank transfer thing?" They were just getting to the fact that they've heard someone give an analogy before about friendships being compared to banks. And with banks, we do a withdrawal. A withdrawal is when you take money away, and a deposit is when you put money in. So if you think about yourself giving social currency, what are you withdrawing and what are you depositing? Hopefully that answers your question. This may sound petty, but if a friend doesn't reply to you for days and you feel ignored, is it bad to be angry? I can't tell you how to feel. So if you're angry at the way that something's going, it might be accurate, right? You just have to navigate what you do with that anger. Um, yes, and I'll repeat the books again, and then I have to run away, y'all, because I will be done and I have to start another presentation. So I need to get that set. And I only have like 2 minutes to do it with bad eyes. Odd Girl Out is the one book by Rachel Simmons, and the other one is No Longer Besties and Other Assorted Teenage Drama by me. I have to go, but you might not be done with me. If you want to come to the next presentation, I welcome you. I'm starting up right here on this channel in 5 seconds. So let me get out of here. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you so much. Um, yes. Okay, I'm gonna go. All right, bye everyone. Take care. Have a great day, and we'll see you shortly. Thanks.